Okay, here we are. At least a few of us that are here. I didn't want to delay any more since you guys were here. I'm sure that the others can pick it up off of the archive if they need to do so. We don't want to delay you guys anymore with things that you may have going on. So I see Monique is typing a bit, see what she has to say, and then we'll do the usual thing, look at the State of the Union, talk about, yeah, there's a whole three of us. It's almost like a tutoring session instead. But we'll look at what we have in the weeks to come and look at our overall schedule, we're going to talk about digestive system tonight and hit the high points, and then see what questions and things we might need to go over. I know that you guys just came off of our 4th exam, and so I'm still working on getting that graded. As soon as those exams are graded, I will send an email or an announcement out and let you know that those are available for you to look. So hopefully those won't take too long. And then in terms of looking forward, I'm going to look at our schedule. So we've got three chapters that are going to be included in our last exam. So our last exam is exam number 5, and it's going to go over digestive system, which is appropriate for Thanksgiving time, metabolism, and reproduction. Now, 2 of those are new systems. Metabolism chapter is a little bit smaller, and again is one kind of like the pH and fluid chapter that sometimes you see like at the end of the kidney chapter, where it's just going over a particular topic in terms of homeostasis. And so we're talking about energy balance and heat balance and things like that. So it's a relatively small chapter. It does not introduce a new system, so that's kind of nice. So it's more like we have kind of 2.5 chapters to be covered in exam 5. Okay? Now one of the things to keep in mind is that with our final on December 12th, on that Tuesday, that is again on campus. And that one, even though I have listed in the syllabus 8 p.m., that should be 6 p.m. again. It should be with Dr. Janet Johnson. Last time she was sick, but hopefully she will be well in order to proctor the exam for us. But notice that on the schedule it says exam 5 and final exam. So what we have there is 2 different things. We've got exam number 5, which is covering the new material, the last 3 chapters in the book. And then we have the final exam, which is a comprehensive exam that has questions taken directly from exams 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that one, the comprehensive exam, is actually only half as long. It's only 50 points. And like I said, it has questions taken from exams 1 through 4. So that should be a bit easier. And so even though it seems like something that might be scary as a comprehensive final, the way that it's set up there and the reduced amount of points that are allocated to it makes it something that's not such a worry. All you have to do is review the questions and answers either from the on-campus exam, your exam 3 that you got back, and the online exams 1, 2, and 4, and you should be fine. So the question was, is it going to be multiple choice? Commonly it's multiple choice and short answer. It doesn't have any questions from the PhysioX or the lab section of the exams. It's usually a combination, a similar distribution of multiple choice questions and short answer. And usually when we look at an exam, it's been somewhere between 60 and 70% or so multiple choice, and the remaining 20 or 30% or something like that would be essay. Okay? So that's coming up, exam number 5 and the comprehensive final. So that's December 11th at 6 p.m. on campus. So make sure that your schedule is accounting for that. The short answer questions most definitely will come from the previous exams also. So all you have to do in terms of reviewing for that comprehensive final is review your previous exams. Okay. So other things, in addition to the 3 chapters that are going to be part of our exam number 5, we're also going to have some remaining PhysioX exercises, and really it's only going to be 1. So the digestive system PhysioX exercise is a fairly large one. It has multiple parts to it, and we'll talk about in the summary tonight the different parts that it's working to demonstrate. But in essence, it looks at the chemical digestion of a variety of different food molecules that you would take in, and it has you vary the conditions and look at the effectiveness of these different enzymes, etc. But there's lots of different parts to it, and so accordingly, it usually takes more than one quote-unquote lab period. So we have it spread over 2 weeks. So your lab questions will come from that exercise. So fairly simple in terms of the lab component. All right, let's do our tour of digestive system. Again, I know that you just came off of exam 4, so a lot of you maybe have only started looking at the digestive system, but hopefully this will fast track it for you. Okay? Okay, so what we're going to do in the lecture, as well as in the highlights tonight, is we're just going to show kind of the tour of what we're going to expect as we're reading through the chapter, as we're listening to the archives, etc. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at the system overall. So we've seen this pattern again and again where we're introduced to a new organ system, and so we need to look at the different organs that contribute to it, right? So by definition, the organ system is going to be made up of multiple organs working together for a particular function and helping to maintain homeostasis. Now, unlike respiratory system, where it's a very compact system, only located in one area of the body and with relatively few organs, digestive system spreads over a far expanse of the body and involves many different organs. Now, some of them we would call primary organs for a digestive system. They occur along this muscular and mucosal-lined tube called the alimentary canal. So those are going to be the primary digestive organs that are along what we call Main Street, or along this alimentary canal. But in addition to that, we've got numerous what we would call accessory organs, like salivary glands and tongue and liver and gallbladder and pancreas. These are organs that contribute to the digestive function in some way, but the food generally doesn't go into these accessory organs. They're going to produce some sort of secretion usually that dumps in, mixes with the food, and aids in the digestive process. So when we see this diagram, it's going to remind us that we've got numerous different organs that are involved in the system, and we need to know specifically how each contribute. Now, one of the ways that I look at the digestive system is, in a way, it's kind of like this big conveyor belt, right? And so, if you're at a factory or something like that and you have a big conveyor belt, you have all these workstations along the way, and each stop or each station along the way has its particular role. And if that station or that worker at that station does not complete their activity, then it makes it difficult or almost impossible for those further down the path to do their particular job. So that's the same thing that we're going to see with digestive system too. But when we look at it in a factory, it's more of an assembly line, right? An assembly line where we start with small components, we put them together, we come out with a large product at the end. It's exactly the opposite in terms of the digestive system, okay? Instead of an assembly line, this is basically a disassembly line, right? We're going to be ingesting large things, food, and we're going to be breaking them down in these various organs until we get smaller and smaller and smaller particles, get down to very small molecules that can be absorbed across the body wall, put into the bloodstream, and transported to the cells that need these nutrients, okay? So that's what we're going to be looking to do. We want to see how each of these organs contributes to the digestive process. And ultimately, when this system gets done with its job, we're going to have these products that are the small building blocks that we're going to give to the cells, that the cells will then use to synthesize their own materials to stay alive, etc. Okay, so that's the next thing that we kind of look into in terms of the chapter is these various digestive processes that we see here. Now this is a very simplified model of the digestive system, but even so, it gives you the idea of these different organs and how they may contribute to the digestive function. Okay, so motility is going to be movement because we've got to move along this conveyor belt. Okay, digestion is going to be the process, either physical, which we also call mechanical, or chemical digestion. But in either case, digestion is where we take large things and we make them smaller, right? We're breaking them down. Then we also have absorption going on, right? So once we've broken down these large food particles into small enough particles, then they can move across the intestinal wall, be picked up by the blood, delivered and processed to a variety of organs. Now there are some, depending on the textbook you read, there are some other functions of the digestive system. Sometimes you'll see them written, so you'll see, for instance, ingestion. You may see secretion as well. So those are others that certainly are important in terms of the digestive system. You know, with motility, it's about moving it from organ to organ. With digestion, it's about breaking things down. Absorption, bringing it across the body wall. But ingestion is moving things into the digestive system at first, right? That's where you're taking food in. And then secretion is going to be very important too. We said that this long tube has a tunica mucosa or mucosal lining to it, so we're going to have mucus entering in to the lumen and mixing with the food, but we're going to find a variety of other secretions too. Bile, we're going to find bicarbonate that's coming from the pancreatic juice. There's going to be hydrochloric acid coming in the stomach. So there's a lot of secretions that are very important for digestive functions. So you can use any of those other types of functions too. And here you see ingestion, right? The idea of bringing in food and water or fluids for the needs of the body. Now what we're going to do as you go through the lecture and also as you go through the book is you're going to see that at the very end, or the bulk of the chapter, it's about a tour, right? It's about a tour through the digestive system, making stops along the way, much like food would, and discussing what each of those organs do in terms of aiding in digestion. Now before we get into that in terms of specialized functions for these organs, we know that this main street, this main pathway or alimentary canal, is going to have a similar structure to it because it's just a tube, right? And so it's going to be a mucus-lined tube. It has a mucosal lining because this tube opens to the outside on some end, right, on either end. And so any organ that opens to the outside is going to have a mucosal lining to it. Then we're going to have a submucosa, a muscularis externa, and a serosa, things that you probably saw in anatomy. So what we're doing here is just talking about how most of the system is organized. Okay, so for instance, it was much like in skeletal system way back when, you would usually look at like a long bone as your main example of a bone and talk about the different parts like epiphysis and diaphysis and medullary cavity, but you realize that not all bones were like that. And so we're doing the same thing here. We're looking at the similarities of all these different sections along the alimentary canal, and then once we have that down, we can look into their uniqueness and how they each contribute uniquely to the digestive function. Okay, so again, specialized structures in different sections. Now this is certainly another important topic within the digestive system. We talk about the fact that the whole system is geared towards taking big things, breaking them down into smaller components or products, and then putting those into the bloodstream. But what are we looking to break down? Is it anything we take in? If we're chewing nuts and bolts or cardboard or something like that, does that count? The main things that we as a digestive system and we as our systemic cells that need nutrients are looking for are these four categories here of organic molecules: carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and nucleic acids. All right, so what we're going to find is that for those four molecules, we're going to need to know where these four organic food molecules get chemically digested, where they get mechanically digested, and how we move them or absorb them across the body wall. So we start out with this slide where it shows us starting out with macromolecules and through the digestive process ending up with our products, which are very simplified and smaller. Okay, so you definitely need to know this. You definitely need to know, check, you definitely need to know our four organic molecules, what we're starting with, and what we end up with once digestion has occurred. In addition to that, when you see these arrows here, in almost all cases, you're going to see an additional arrow where we have an enzyme that is contributing to the digestive process. And enzymes, as you well probably learned in other biology classes, are very specific in terms of their substrate or where they're going to bind. And so there's going to be specific enzymes for each of these four organic molecules that we ingest. Okay, so you've got to pay attention to that too. We need to know an enzyme, at least one, if not two enzymes, that aid us in digesting these organic food molecules. And when we talk about those enzymes, like amylase or lipase or something like that, we also need to know where they come from. Okay, so in this section it just goes through those different organic food molecule categories. Carbohydrates, talk about how we digest them, talk about how we get them across the body wall and into the interstitial fluid, right? This is the lumen where the food is. If we want to absorb these nutrients once we've digested them, these are various ways that we're going to do so. Okay? So we have carbohydrates, then we look at proteins, then we look at fats. And fats are a two-step process, and you'll see that in the Physio-X exercise. The first step is emulsification of fat using biosalts. Okay? So biosalts are going to come, and they're going to adhere to the surface of these fat droplets. And it's going to break up that large fat globule into lots of smaller fat droplets, and that will allow the digestive enzymes like lipase to get in there and aid us in digesting, chemically digesting this fat. If you didn't have the emulsification in there, the lipase, the enzyme that helps to digest lipids, would not be as effective because it would only be able to target the very surface of this larger fat droplet, and any of the fats in here would be protected. There wouldn't be physical access to them. Meanwhile, with emulsification, we can see there's a lot more surface area where these enzymes can get in and work on chemically digesting these molecules. Okay, fats are also a little bit more complicated in terms of their transport, right? They're slippery little buggers, so we got to make sure we put them in membranous bags and things like that in order to escort them along in terms of absorption. Talk a little bit about vitamins and waters and things like that. That's one of the things to note also. People tend to think about our digestive organs only in terms of food, but of course that food contains water, and we ingest fluids as well. So our small intestine and our digestive system need to be able to process and reabsorb water, or absorb water, so that we can send it out to the cells. So talk about water and minerals a bit. And then, before we get into our big tour, we need to look at how this system, the digestive system, is controlled and coordinated by other systems. So, what are going to be our two control systems that we would be looking to see how they work to control the digestive system? So what are our two control systems in the body? Systems that control and coordinate other systems. David's coming up. Nervous, excellent, yes. Nervous is one, and endocrine is the other one. Right? Endocrine is going to be the system where we have chemical messengers too, but these are called hormones. They're transported in the blood. Okay? So you need to know different ways that the body works to control the activities of the digestive system, because they need to match what's going on in the rest of the body. So if you're not very active, we don't need a lot of nutrients coming in. If you're really active, we definitely need a bunch of nutrients coming in to support those activities of those cells. So ways that we control or coordinate digestive system, again you see nervous system there. So there's going to be autonomic extrinsic control, but there's also going to be an internal control, which is called the enteric nervous system, which ends up being like a digestive system intranet, where different digestive organs can communicate to and from one another in order to regulate the digestive process. And so here lists a variety of different major digestive hormones. So you need to know those hormones and kind of what they do and what organs are affected. And then from there, we're just doing a tour, like I said. So we're going to act like we are a piece of food, and we're going to talk about each of the different main organs and accessory organs that we encounter along the way and how they contribute to this digestive function. So it's pretty straightforward. But as you're going through it, not only are you going to pick up some vocabulary of different parts and things like that, but you want to keep in mind about how each of these organs are contributing to the digestive process. So we're in the mouth. What can the mouth do in terms of aiding digestion? Well, we've got teeth in there that can physically digest the food and make it smaller. We've got different types of salivary glands that will put out different secretions. Okay, some will just put out saliva, as you would imagine, but there are also two different types of cells that contribute to the saliva, mucus cells and serous cells and things like that. We also find that the largest of the salivary glands, the parotid one, put out an enzyme called salivary amylase. So that helps us in terms of chemical digestion. So we got physical digestion in the mouth, we got chemical digestion in the mouth of carbohydrates. So you need to track those things through time. As you go to a new section of the digestive system, you need to be able to figure those things out. Is there mechanical digestion going on here? Is there chemical digestion going on here? Is there secretion going on here? Okay, things like that. Okay, so salivary glands, we talk about the saliva, and here is the name of that enzyme that I was talking about, salivary amylase. Talk about some of the other accessory structures in the mouth, the tongue, the teeth, etc. And here's kind of a summary of what's going on in terms of digestion in the mouth. I try a few different ways of kind of coalescing or bringing the material together to make it a little bit easier. Then from the mouth we go to the pharynx and the esophagus, where you're going to be pushing that bolus of food down. Then we get to the stomach. So you need to know different areas of the stomach, and for sure different cells inside the stomach that have a variety of functions, cellular functions. Then we go down. Esophagus is very easy. We get down to the stomach, start talking about the enzymes, the hydrochloric acid, and things like that. Talk a little bit about the activity and the control of the stomach. Then after the stomach, you get into small intestine. And the first section of the small intestine is called the duodenum. The duodenum is a mixing ground. So the food is coming down from the stomach, and it's arriving at the duodenum. But luckily, secretions from the pancreas and from the liver and from the gallbladder all get put into the duodenum with that new food load, and they mix with it to help chemically digest it. So we talk about what the pancreas does in terms of different enzymes and things, as well as sodium bicarbonate to neutralize the acidic chyme. When we get to the liver, it has a variety of functions, but the main function that we look at in terms of the liver is its production of bile. So bile is actually created in the liver, and after a while what it does is it has a direct connection to the gallbladder, and it will store the bile that it has made in the gallbladder. And then when it is necessary, when we have a fatty meal or something like that, and we need that bile, it's mostly secreted by the gallbladder there. And then you get some new bile coming from the liver. But it's a bit easier on the liver that way, by not having to consistently make bile immediately. Okay, so then when we get down to small intestine and large intestine, small intestine is certainly where it's at in terms of digestive system. We have all these different enzymes that are piling in there with it, so we're going to finish the digestive process. We're going to absorb it across the body wall. In this figure here, you show some, like the stomach, how it churns. This is how the small intestine undergoes segmentation, or a splitting process that creates these small kind of packages that will then be split during muscular contractions. So you can see how this one split into two like that. And if we do another muscular contraction, we're going to split these ones in two again. And so that consistent split and split and split helps to physically separate the food and help to break it up mechanically. And this is called segmentation. So in the large intestine, it's kind of the cleanup crew, because most of the absorption of nutrients and water and things like that occurs in the small intestine. So that's certainly an important point there, is that a lot of people focus on the stomach as kind of the core or the center of the digestive system, and really it's more the role of the intestine, the small intestine. So in terms of color change, so when we're talking about the color change of what specifically? Are you talking about like when the food goes in, the food comes out? So with that, with the bile has a greenish color to it, but it also has different types of pigments, from degraded red blood cells and things like that, bilirubin and things like that. And so those contribute to it. In the large intestine, the symbiotic bacteria that are there undergo some chemical reactions upon it as well, which also contribute to the color. So a lot of the things that contribute to the fresh food are extracted during this digestive process, and it leaves kind of a base color, if you will, in terms of the brown. Okay, so like we said, the small intestine is really where it's at in terms of digestion and absorption, and by the time we get to the large intestine, it's really just cleanup crew. It's really pulling in any remaining water or electrolytes or whatever. We have those symbiotic bacteria in there as well. Okay, and towards the very end of the chapter, I do spend some time after our tour going through and reviewing these different organic food molecules that we take in and looking at kind of what happens to each of them. So you can see it kind of lists a lot of our different digestive structures, and it talks about how they contribute in terms of the digestion of that particular molecule, whether it's complex carbohydrates, or whether it's proteins, or whether it's lipids, or whether it's nucleic acids. So hopefully that kind of brings together a macroscopic view with all of our different organs, and then the microscopic view as well, right? Even below that, the molecular view, where we're going from a large macromolecule and we're digesting it down into smaller building blocks. So there's a spoiler there. Now you guys know the secret. All right, so any questions on kind of those points that we highlighted, or any questions that you guys have from doing your reading or listening to the archives? All right, so Dave is good. Mariella, Monique, and Vanessa, how are you guys doing? Any questions? Okay. So, you know, even though it's a big complex system, if you can break it down into those major topics like we mentioned there, looking at kind of the similarity of the structure of the digestive system, muscular tube of the alimentary canal, looking at the chemical nature of what we're trying to digest, what we're trying to end up with at the end of this process, talk about how we break those down and where they come across and how we transport them. And then a lot of looking at the control and coordination of the system, different neurons and endocrines that control its functions and its activity. And then finally, the big tour through the digestive system, and specifically knowing how each of those organs contributes to breaking down the food that we take in. All right, so Monique is typing, so we'll see what she has to say, and Vanessa's typing. But in essence, that's what I wanted to cover tonight. Now, like we said at the beginning, we've only got kind of 2.5 chapters. So we've got the digestive system, the reproductive system, and then it's 1 chapter in metabolism. So really what we might do is we can save then and do on the 29th, do our discussion section on metabolism and reproduction at that point, because the metabolism chapter, like we were mentioning, is quite small. So Monique says, would exam 5 objectives be areas for us to work on with such a large section? Yeah, it's true that in the content section of Desire to Learn, I do have an objective sheet there which have questions that are specifically directed towards processes or structures of these 3 systems. So they're always something good to get you thinking about the material, and possible like essay questions might be similar to what those things are asking, etc. So always use any and all of those resources to make sure you're getting what you need. So the exam 5 is worth 100 points, just like all of the other exams. The final itself is only 50 points. And we said the final is going to be it has questions on it there pulled from exams 1, 2, 3, and 4. So a bit easier that way. All right, so like usual, I'm going to hang out for a couple of minutes in case something comes up. Other than that, make sure that you stay up on things. Digestive system is a big system, so get a jump start on that previous to your Thanksgiving holidays. And then when you're in your Thanksgiving holidays, think about what you're eating and what it's made of and how different digestive enzymes, etc., are working to break it down. And you can tell everybody all about it and sound all smart. All righty. And we will talk to you guys again soon. If you do have extra credit that you didn't turn in previously, you most certainly can turn it in on the day of that final, the on-campus Exam 5 and final that is occurring on December 11th at 6 p.m. So it's fine, just like last time. If you look at the syllabus in terms of the lab section, we only have one Physio-X exercise that's included in this last section. Now it's a bigger Physio-X exercise on the digestive system, but since it's so large, we spread it out over 2 weeks. So that's the only one you have to worry about in terms of that section on the lab. Alrighty.